What a timing, you might say, that we have. As people who play music, timing is everything. Bill Monroe told us that timing is the most important. But timing, and well, it was really good timing when that deal came down, wasn't it? It was really good timing, and so I think it's good timing, and to be able to get a good timing and opportunity to take advantage of those timings, to take care of those opportunities that come around, and that's what Ricky's done through his many years. And I watched him progress as a musician and a singer, and I was in a group called Country Gazette in the early 70s. Remember that group? But anyway, I first was aware, of course I heard about Ricky and Keith Whitley playing with Ralph Stanley. I thought that was a cool deal. A couple of teenagers being able to play music with Ralph Stanley. And of course I didn't meet Ricky till about 72 or 3 maybe, some of these dates, but in the early 70s. He was playing in a group called the Country Gentlemen, playing fiddle with him. And and Country Gazette, we'd been booked on the same festivals, and so I got to see Ricky, and we got to jam somewhat, and swap licks and stuff. And then I watched him. He had other groups he played with. I think I saw him with J.D. Crowe a couple of times, and then he had a group called Boone Creek he played with, and then came along Emmylou Harris. Emmylou Harris was a good friend of mine. I helped her get into business with Graham Parsons, actually. And when Ricky came along and got into Emmy's band, he really helped her sound. And I think she helped him develop his sound that he finally got into, in his country music days. And I watched him, and I listened to him, and I thought, thank God for Ricky Skaggs putting country back into country music back in the 80s.
Amen.
Yes. But as you know, Ricky, you and I really respect Bill Monroe, don't we? Come up here, Ricky. I want to tell you a story. I've never told Ricky this story before, so I'll tell him, and I'll tell you at the same time. As you know, I played with Bill in 1967 and got to record some songs with him and stuff. And he and I were really close friends, and we could talk to each other like just friends, I mean, a lot of guys were in awe of Bill Monroe, wouldn't say boo to him or anything. But he and I had a good relationship. And I know he respected you too. And so, but anyway, here's my story, and it might bore you, but I'm going to tell you this anyway. It's kind of funny. 1980 or so, I cut an album. See, before I started recording, I did mostly traditional fiddle tunes. I did an album with the Dillards, was real traditional. I did an album on Rounder Records called Dad's Favorites, was real traditional bluegrass. But 1980, I had been out in LA, and I'd recorded a lot with some of these great musicians. And so I thought, I'm going to do an album, and I'm going to put all these guys on this album. J.D. Manis on steel guitar, John Hobbs on piano, Leland Sklar on bass, James Burton, Albert Lee, Vince Gill on electric guitars, Dan Crary on acoustic guitar, John Hickman on banjo, Skip Conover on dobro, and I think Mark, good friend of mine, Mark, was playing drums. And it was a different deal. So, and I called the album Outrageous. And it was pretty outrageous. So, about that time, Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys came out to California. Kenny Baker was his fiddle player at the time. So every time Bill would come out there, I'd go see him, of course. And of course, I'd always get Kenny to ride in the car. I'd take him to the gigs, And so while we were riding in the car, I says, Kenny, you want to hear my new project I'm working on? Sure. So I put it in there, and he listened to it. He says, wow, that's great. I love that. He says, you need to play that for Bill Monroe. And I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to like that too much. No, he'll like it. He'll like it. Well, anyway, we go back to the motel after the gig's over, and Bill's standing up on the second balcony of the motel up there. And Kenny gets out of the car. Chief, come down here. You got to hear this. I said, no. Kenny, no. Well, it's too late. Here comes Bill. He walks in. What you got there? That's the way Bill talked, What do you got? I said, well, I've got my new little album project I'm working on. Well, let's hear it. So plugged it in the car. It had a cassette of it. Put it in there. He listened to it. Well, first break was a steel guitar break. He goes, "What's that right there?" I said, "That is a steel guitar, Bill. You know what that is." "Well, that just ruined it." I said, "Well, okay." I looked at Kenny and I kind of, Well, he knew he wasn't getting to me. He said, "Play a little bit longer." So he knew he wasn't getting to me. And his next statement was, "Well, Byron, your daddy wouldn't like you doing that kind of music." I said, "What are you talking about? What kind of music are you talking about, Bill?" "That's swing music right there." I said, wait a minute. I said, "My dad was listening to Bob Wills before he ever heard of you." He didn't like that too much. But I could talk to him that way, and he, so he stomped off. I looked at Kenny and said, "That went over good, didn't it?" So here comes the good part. About 6 months later, Bill comes back out to California, and I go see him. I said, "Hey, Bill, how you doing?" "I'm fine, I'm doing fine." So we small talk a little bit, and I said, "Hey, what'd you think of Ricky Skaggs' recording of Uncle Pen?" "Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was really..." Well, the reason was because his recording of Uncle Pen was, I don't know if it got up number 1, but it got a lot of airplay, and it was doing really well. And of course, Bill thought it was wonderful because it was making him a lot of money, for sure, because, well, it was good. So I said, "Bill," see, he did it with his country band. Might clarify that first. I said, "Bill, there was a steel break in it. Did you hear that steel break?" "Yes, I did." I said, "I don't think your Uncle Pen would have liked that at all." He looked at me and just smiled, and I got him back. But anyway, if Uncle Pen and Bill Monroe were alive, Ricky, I'm sure they'd say they knew your dad would like what you're doing. So give a hand to Ricky Skaggs right here, folks.
Ricky, I'm proud to present you with this award from the National Fiddler Hall of Fame for all the things that you do for fiddling. And you do fiddle. A premier mandolin player, band leader, and career music artist. His love for music and is infectious, bringing American music into our homes, entertaining with masterful talent. The Fiddler Hall of Fame inducts you to this day, March 30th, 2018. We don't induct, but we honor you with a special award, which is special for this music.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really do appreciate this. And I tell you, I accept this on behalf of my dad, because I'll tell you, he loved fiddling so much. He loved it. If it hadn't been for him, I would have never started playing the fiddle. I don't think. I just don't think I ever would have. Even though EADG, I was familiar. My little left hand on my mandolin. But when I started playing the fiddle, Mom started letting me do something that she had never let me do before. And that was to get out of the house and go over on the old bridge over there that was about a half mile away. And she'd let me go over there and just sit and play. She said, "Honey, why don't you go over there and play? And I can keep my eye on you. And when it's supper time, I'll holler at you." And we didn't have no texting or airdrop or anything back then, And I thought she was being so sweet to me. She was saving her sanity is what she was doing. But my dad was so wise when I started learning to play the fiddle. He introduced me to some old fiddlers that was still carrying something that was ancient and old. One guy in particular, his name was Sanford Kelly. And he was an old-time fiddler from West Liberty, Kentucky, up in Morgan County. And I'd been listening to Chubby Wise, Paul Warren, all the Stanley Brother fiddlers, Art Stamper, and people like that on their records, and I listened, even Bobby Hicks and people like that, Benny Martin. But when I heard Sanford Kelly, there was something in my DNA, there was something in my spirit that just absolutely leapt out of me. I connected with him so much. It was unbelievable when I heard those ancient sounds of the mountains. It was like he had come from another planet. I mean, who is this? What is this? It was so ancient sounding, but it was so fresh to my ears and so real to my heart. And I wanted so much to glean from that and learn from that. I don't play a whole lot of fiddle anymore because I don't have to. I've got all these great fiddle players in my band, but when I do play, I love to play the ancient tones and the old ancient sounds. And Sanford not only blew my mind on the fiddle when he came to my house one Sunday afternoon, but Dad said, "Sanford, did you bring your banjo with you too?" And he said, "Well, Hobart," he said, I sold my banjo and I ain't got one no more." And Dad said, "Ricky, go in there under that bed and bring that banjo out." We had a banjo that we'd gotten from a guy. I think Dad had tried to give him a 12-gauge shotgun for it. And anyway, then Sanford sat down, took the back off that banjo, and tuned it in this funky, weird, heavenly sound, and started playing drop thumb style banjo. And I thought, this man is he is absolutely just killing me. It was the greatest Sunday I think I'd ever had. It was just unbelievable. And so I received this for my dad, but for Sanford Kelly and a guy named Paul Johnson that Dad listened to and loved. They was great friends. They grew up in Paintsville, Kentucky together. But Paul Johnson moved to around Dayton, Ohio. And so when we were living up there for a little while, taking care of my grandfather, we looked up Paul, and he was living with his sister and her husband over in Dayton. And so we went over there, and I'd only been playing about a year on the fiddle. And Paul Johnson was an Arthur Smith clone. Because Dad kept saying, "You got to learn that Red Apple Rag, son." And I said, "What is that?" "Oh, now, I'm going to take you up to see Paul Johnson one of these days." So I learned all these Arthur Smith tunes and all these crazy slides and stuff that Arthur would do, and how he'd take his bow off and wrap it around the top, and play, over the strings like that. "Who's going to your pretty little feet," and play all that stuff. Mind-blowing. And so, Dad, thank you for the love of music. Thank you for the love of my mama. And thank you for the love of Jesus that you always patterned in front of me. The way you loved my mom, the way you loved Jesus, and the way you loved music, you imparted to me joy unspeakable that only it's grown and grown and grown because of you, Dad. And I thank you for this. God bless you all.
Ricky Skaggs, ladies and gentlemen.